Name, I'm Aliyah Adelita Siva. I am a fourth year here at the University of Washington. I was born and raised in South Seattle, but my family moved me to Kent, Washington to go to a wider school. The island my family comes from is both American Samoa and independent Samoa. My mom, that's Adelita Garcia Siva. My mom is just from Seattle. Their side is from Texas. They're Tejano, so they're Mexican. And then my dad, he's from American Samoa. He's from the village of Atu'u. Our last name is Siva. His name is Fetua Wina Siva, middle name Shabal. His parents, so my grandma, Tuipato Leota Siva, Tuipato Pili Leota Siva, she's from a village in Savai'i, in Western Samoa, so independent Samoa. And then Talei Siva, that's my grandpa. He's from Manua in American Samoa. Yeah, so they came here in '83. The reason why they came was my grandfather, he was assistant pastor in Samoa, American Samoa, and he got a calling in America to start his own church. So he actually started the first Christian congregation of Samoans in Seattle. So that's how our Siva family moved. My dad migrated with his parents. My dad has 19 siblings. 14 of them are from my grandma and grandpa. And then the other, five were adopted into our family. Yeah, my parents, they had a lot of jobs. Well, specifically my mom, she worked in hospitals as like a assistant nurse. So she was not home a lot. My dad, he worked in construction. What's it called? My dad, he faced a lot of racism. Call him out, period. Like the white men that would do construction with him, they would like ask him in meetings to like stand up and like hula, like that kind of stuff. Like basically like he's a show because he was Samoan. Like it was just a lot on us as kids too because we didn't really know a lot about the backlash we get as Pacific Islanders. Like me and my brothers didn't see that. We always thought we were like happy people, very family oriented. And navigating a foreign land, my dad coming to America, he kind of had to. Well, he started in high school. He went to Rainier Beach High School with my mom. That's how they met. But yeah, they met in high school, and I remember my dad was telling me like he wasn't really studious because a lot of people just saw him as a football player. Cause like all his siblings were there too, like his brothers, and they were just like, oh, that's the big Siva family, like they're huge dudes, or don't mess with their sisters because they'll fight you. So they were basically seen as that. Like all the stereotypes you think about Samoans was my dad and his brothers in high school. So that's basically how he navigated high school. Then when he got older, he started getting like manual labor jobs. Uh, I think when we lived in Kent, it was very watered down, just because we were going to white schools. Um, my mom and dad, they didn't teach us our languages. My mom's mom, so my grandmother, Linda Garcia, she knows Spanish fluently, but she didn't teach it to my mom and her kids because she didn't want them to get bullied. And also at that time, they were getting beat up for speaking Spanish in the classroom. So we don't know that. And then for my dad, he speaks Samoan fluently because he's straight from there, but he didn't teach us because he thought like it would just be harder for us because we're going to English speaking school. He wanted us to go to college eventually because he didn't get the chance to, and my mom only went for like a year and then she quit because she had kids. And then when it came to traditional learning stuff, like Samoan learning, whenever we went back to my grandma's house, we would get that traditional learning because my grandma only spoke Samoan. She refused to speak English. I think it was because she didn't want to lose her culture or her language. But she understood us, but didn't want to speak English. Like, just because we're here in America does not mean she's gonna change herself. So she was a feisty lady. But basically, like all our fayals, all our chores, my grandma would speak to us in Samoan. Like, you have to know what I'm saying. She would never change herself. She would never like speak English. So that was like the Samoan side we would see the most. But back in Kent, we wouldn't see that. Learning more about my dad and my grandparents migrating here um, made me more eager to tell other people within America about who we are, because our community is seen as such like a small community. Even though we're like there's so many of us, we're not as represented. So even when I was young, like I would tell people like I'm Samoan, I'm Samoan, like even though they didn't know what I was talking about. So I think that was one of the things, was just wanting to spread more awareness of who we are, and then that impacted what I want to do in the future as a professor, is to teach our history. That's why I'm going to grad school too. Basically, whatever my parents and grandparents couldn't do, I'm trying to do it now. Yeah, so we were definitely raised in like Samoan Christian households. However, my grandpa, so I've heard, because I was born after he passed away. He uh, making sure that we, whatever spirituality we were coming from, it was okay. Like we're free to be who we want. We're free to respect each other. Um, and also maintaining like that cultural awareness that we have. So like our culture is big on like being respectful to elders, uh, valuing your community. So wherever you go, you're putting your people on the map, is what they say. So when I came to like a predominantly white university, it's a little hard because there's a lot of conflicting ideas on religion and about culture. Especially like when people ask me like, "What are you?" and I'm like, American. I'm brown. Be like, oh, I'm Samoan and Mexican, and then they're like, oh my gosh, so like Samoan is like Hawaiian, and then you just say yeah, even though you're not. You just kind of go with the flow, which kind of sucks because it makes us look submissive, but we're tired of having to keep saying who we are. And I think that I need to bring that back too, because that's another value that we were taught, was to keep saying like I am Samoan. And that's a thing about half breeds too. It's like, stop saying that you're half Mexican, half Samoan. Like, I'm Samoan and I'm Mexican. Like, you're a whole of both. So yeah, I think that was kind of weird coming to a white university, because there's literally white men outside like protesting about like, ask me why you're gonna go to hell. And it's like, but my family didn't teach me that. Especially like in our culture, like we don't have any animosity or disrespect towards people who want to like love who they want. Have a third gender, the fafafinge. So like with my parents, they, or my like grandparents, they would talk like highly of those people because you have a man, or you have a job of a man and a woman. But on campus, it was like it was a whole shift. Like you're learning about like how the Palangi see it. Throughout my experience at the university, a lot of people have a lot to say about who you are, even though they don't know. So I really found my voice that my grandparents have. Like they used to say like my grandpa was very loud, my grandma too. Like they're very loud people because they were passionate in what they were speaking about. So that was definitely something that I took with me. Is like a lot of people when they migrate to the US, they're very hesitant to speak up because they don't want to jeopardize who they are um, in the States. And just paving my own way too, because that's what they did when they came here. They paved their own way, even if like they were in the lowest circumstances. They still kept it going. And that was what I had to do here too, is because like I'm in classrooms surrounded by a whole bunch of white people, and even Asian people too, like a lot of them. So it was like I never had a place where I felt wanted or seen or heard, and that's why I had to pave my own way, and that's why I'm going to grad school now. So it's just like it's a lot to carry on your shoulders, but when you remember where you came from, it's easy.
So my name is Semaijah Ishtu. I am from the Bay Area in California, specifically from Menlo. Half Tongan, half Mexican. I'm majoring in communications here at UW. My dad, his name is Semaijah. He's the oldest of five. His parents are Molitika Siu and Vea Siu, born in Kolmotu'at in Tonga. And there he was raised for his first like 6 years of his life. But he wasn't raised by his parents. He was raised by my great grandparents and his grandparents, which is Semisi Lahi. So he was the older, who he was named after, Semisi Siu and Saini Siu, who I'm also named after. Was raised in Auckland, New Zealand, and there he just went to school, sports, kind of the usual. 1991, where I believe that's where he decided to come to America by himself. He was just letting us know, like, he kind of just found his way and found his people, got a lot closer to the family that was out here in America that he didn't really, know while he was being raised out there overseas. And then a little bit about my mom. She was born in Merida, Yucatan, in Mexico. Completely different from my dad. She was brought up in the hood, just, mud bound. And she kind of built her lifestyle coming from nothing and just building her way up. Went to school. She actually went to the University of San Francisco, which is pretty dope. And then after she graduated, that's where both my parents met. And then ever since then, after a year of them being together, they decided to get married. And then 5 years after that, they had all of us. And as soon as they decided to have kids, that we were actually living in Arizona at that time, but then moved back to the Bay Area, where honestly my parents kind of struggled to kind of just set their feet down, and so we were moving. We were living with my dad's side of the family. I feel like it's just commonly done in Polynesian culture. Good amount of my life in the beginning, we moved around in between Emeryville and Oakland, just kind of moving around houses. And then as soon as I began elementary school, my parents had done a lot of research on what were the best, schools that, their kids could attend to. And like the ones that had popped up were in Menlo. And I would say, for those who don't know, the Bay Area is crazy expensive. And so like, especially, if you have a big family and whatnot, it is pretty hard to, afford living with enough space, for everyone. And so my parents gave us, just a very good life from what they've experienced. We were placed in honestly predominantly white schools, and so growing up it was kind of hard because you didn't see anyone that was like you. Everyone there was kind of just white, if not just Asian, so just everything that you commonly see everywhere else. And so that was kind of hard my childhood, because as Tongan and Mexican, you kind of just trying to look for people who are like you, that look like you. It wasn't until middle school and high school when I finally got to come across the big Polynesian community that they have out there in the Bay. And that's where I was able to start connecting with, the other Tongans, Samoans, and just everyone from that community. And we kind of grew closer to our Tongan culture and Tongan side because of the sport of rugby. And so my dad became a coach for our local rugby team, East Palo Alto Razorhawks. Shout out to them. My dad just played a huge role in becoming a community man, and seeing that, I kind of just was empowered by that, just the way he brought so many more polys to the team, and just seeing that I was able to connect with more people that look like me, just more of my culture, which I loved, and it was just honestly a beautiful experience to witness. He also advocated for them receiving a good education. And so that was the one thing that my dad brought into the club, because before they were kind of just mainly focused on rugby, but my dad kind of just implemented that importance of education, because you can easily get a scholarship and whatnot, continuing playing that sport into a higher level of education. So my dad was a big advocate for all the polys in EPA and Menlo. Everyone knew my dad's name, and I feel like that was also another thing that I dealt with growing up. I was always known as the coach's daughter for rugby. So I mean, it was cool sometimes, but also at the same time, I always felt like I always had eyes on me. I would say, based on where I live and also being Afghasi, it was watered down, especially with my mom being there. Um, she made sure we kind of were embracing both of our cultures, and with that, my mom put us in Spanish immersion. So all throughout my elementary school, I was being taught in Spanish, and so that's how I learned Spanish and how I'm fluent. But my dad had did a really good job. I mean, before we had even gone into Spanish immersion, Tongan was my first language, which I had no idea was like. My dad had just let us know that yeah, like he just raised us on just Tongan lesonis and hymns and everything, and so because like growing up and seeing that like other polys were kind of like having that traditional experience, I used to always look at my dad and kind of be like, how come we didn't go do it? And we were in the beginning of our childhood, we had to be participate part of Fakame and all that. Yeah. But after that, just kind of growing up, and especially where we were at, we didn't kind of go to the Methodist church that was in Palo Alto, which was another city over, and all the polys went to that one. On my dad's side of the family, I feel like that's when we really kind of just embraced the cultural traditions, learning how to make, the food, and just I feel like just kind of traditions like, prayers and hymns and anything that we have to do down to us learning how to dalunga and all of that. Of course, my dad here and then would speak Tongan to us, and that's how we would learn kind of just words and phrases. But we definitely lost our Tongan once we learned Spanish and English. Man, that it was we lost it. Just growing up and hearing the stories that they've, gone through in their journey of life, I think first off, I was kind of just amazed because I mean, like you look at your parents and you don't immediately think of their life before you. And so when they start to tell us, the sacrifices and the challenges that they went across, it just kind of gives you that moment to stop and recognize like, dang, like look at all the sacrifices they done went through to give us a better life. How they migrated from two completely different countries, it's motivated me to be better not only for my siblings but my family, but also for my culture. Honestly, I would say kind of like their stories have just empowered me, like knowing that I come from that, I come from like their roots, kind of just makes me feel proud of who I am. I feel like anytime I'm asked about my identity, the first thing I always talk about is both of my rich cultures. Especially navigating a predominantly white institution, it's definitely been hard, but I mean, I feel like it's allowed me to be the diversity that the world and community needs. My identity, it's helped me look for other Polynesian students and kind of connect and bond, with the memories and traditions that is shared among the culture. It's honestly been an inspiration to me, and I continue to be that inspiration for future generations, and hopefully like it's just normal to see Polynesians within these highest like educational institutions. Like I'm just really proud to represent Polynesians, especially Tongan culture, at this high level of education, simply through academics, and just allowing to be that representation for other future generations, and letting them know that we're smart, we can do it, we're capable of these things, and it's just a matter of hard work and wanting it. So
Sione, Tawamalo, Kamoto. O mātuaga tamai ko manase o tulau Kamoto. Mo Tonga, Aho, Kamoto. Toa ko Hokoiau ko Ameti Kamoto. Mo sisi ko Sosaia Fuaiwaha Kamoto. Ne me ai tahine tahane koe pusiaki ko Lesley. Aho, rahi e mau dolgo do. Tolu. Pusiaki pe tonga mumana. Ai anke hao hataha I family o ia tonga manaske o mai ki murini o fai beha feinga be mo ewa ba foki ange begi tang pe ko ilo I pauna tae manasuki ki fi hao ia ke ai pe hataha ia ke ai a tonga ke hao pe o ewa ko ki fi hao fi nof pi tonga ai ange meta ai ange ka tonga tangi tonga Tatapi mo ke fi hao I ka mau nof matori tonga mo manas pe ka paole wa ai ke mau mai o ewa pa ai ka to api matori mau lava hao whakataha pe Nama mai ki Amerikani e tahi wa waru tolu. Siulai, aho fitu, tahi wa waru tolu. Mawahi me mitonga he aho fitu, ma tau me bigi heni o. E aho fitu pe koen ko Amerikani, he wawe ake tahi mea tō ngā fwoi. Me me ho wa wafa, wa umea fo immigration ni ai. Ma taktau kingat hao lewa ki. Ela ei hau ki sea tonu. Nama tau me ko ki Amerikani. Fu ke hau pitu. Ai tūnga koen me tonga ki Amerikani. Nai pehe fo koe mau. Anga koe mau fo ai me tonga koe. Amerikani ku. Mau mea whaingofua he whaingofua. I Amerikani. O kai ke mau whaingana. He koe mea kotoa pe mau i Amerikani. O mau kotoa ia I tonga ka upau peke ki. O whaingata angi whunga koe mau i tonga. I mea kongo I morini. I Amerikani. Tā koe o kua mai koe ki Amerikani ia. O whaingofua angi pe umea ia. E mau angi pe I tonga. Mau angi whaingofua angi ia he mea. No mau koe Amerikani. Kuike. Whunga whuka Amerikani. Lahi ka kupau ki te ngā ua ki te kia. Whamiri pe koe. Tō lahi whamiri koe o tonga. Whangatunga ane pe o tonga. Nei toko tolu ko. Isi atone taimu ko iako. Whanua. Mo Sione aho Soni. Mona taktau hi whamiri. Fui toko tolu ko iako. Mo toi ngā whangakāsini pe o tonga mene. Ka whaki entamai. Whanau e anti o tonga. Ko lusi, ko ne whanau, ko sina. Fufua tonga I mahane tu tamisi atoni. Mo no mali. Nei mau mai bisi atoni. Os kamata pe u lotu mo mea. Ai lotu e. Lotu kau tonga. Siasi metotisi, eko siasi metotisi pe taha taim goia. Na whewhika wai a whirem tupou. Siasi tonga ko Stephen Fonua ia mo. No whamir. Pea ko community e taim goia. Mau whaikawa pe. Whaikawa tonga pe mātua pe taim goia e. O nau whao ai lewa ai community tonga. Pea nau pe heke ai e pe mua kalapu kawa tonga. Ko kalapu kawa tonga ne puke puke ai. Community I mo mea. Me taha pe ia kupu e community. O whotu lewa e ai kalapu. Kana whaianga whaikawa pe si atoni. Peke ha kalapu. O ai lewa whotu e. He kau memi pāmo e kau. Ki kau community ko he taim koia. O ai hakalapu piko ingoa hakalapu ki ai o lesi. O ngau e aki ke whaikawa. Whamana ko koe whaikawa. O whakatu e uhingoa kehe ukalapu. Ukalapu me wawa u koe lolo. Ai ahingoa ke ai ke pāloti aki mo. O ai lewa hiki nima o. O nau loto mena toki whili e hingoa e loto kalapu loto mo ngā ue o ke whakahingoa ke kalapu I koe si atoni ai koe kalapu I koe community tau ngai taim koe ia. Pea ai atu fo koe mea o tae manas ke ai ha kalapu pe u mea hiku. Tange e harot puloka mo I mātua kui wai mo. Ui aki pe ia. Na mau hako mi tonga. Na e ostu e kalapu loto mo ngā ue I api pe. O langa mo whare kalapu ia. He koe kalapu ia mau. I whitu ko. O mau tori koru. O no fo I eta mai ki ai o. Kai te o whae ko nā mo mea. Kana unafu mai ki lot mo ngā. O hao ai koe ma hiki mai leo ma tori ki se atoni a koe e mea. O mai ko ai koe kalapu e heni. O nau te whikau pe nau tori o whaami na to ke ui pe ko lot mo ngā. Ai koe kalapu e mea. Hina mahi no pe uku. Nau tang mahi no pe le le fo fo ngā mo mea. Kau ai e pe ia heni ui pe ko lot mo ngā e heni ko. Ko manasi na e. Panau while pe manasi ke Palestine. Ko mai ki muri ni ke whakalaka ki ma ki te ki taha ke ai tu unga whakaako. Mi tu unga whakaako koe na mai tonga kana o mai lewa pero i muri ni fu kehe au bito e. O no fo e bea koe taimi koe no fo koe ngā e ki mua koe pe huke siti ai koe ia te wha whatamai me mana suton ka pawi ke ako pe o te mo whakawhiwhif ki ia te whinga hanga awe kauta pe kai pike ngā le fu i ako nako ia ai koe kai ki whihua ako pe o e whakawhiwhif ki ia te koe koe te mo whaatara mai pe kai ki mo lawa e mo tori ia te i American. E koe ngana mahau matu mi tonga ina kei peke mau whakawhiwhif matur ki ke o ki uta pe koha mea. Koe o piki uta hangi hao pe iao ewa. O kua whikoe me mea he kai ke moulawa mo tori ia te. Ia te ia hangi pēha te nofo koi tonga o aru ki uta huo. Pea maro lo ia. No pea oi ia. Koe mo ni usai ange te whinga ke ngawe kautaha. O piki e piko ni koe ngawe hesi tia o me ke aho ni o ke. Tong mo oni pe ia. Mahawinga pite whaapa i he whaamiri i tonga koe. He tupu ake koe ai taktaha tapusi i tonga. Whapaapa he whanau e tamai mai whaewa. Whapaapa e tunga ani ke tu whewhine ke tunga ani. Whapaapa e kui. Ina mau tupu ake koe whaea manase o kei mo ui ko akirisi. No fokoe a koe i Amerikane kautonga, wheo fo whane au pite no fokoe kautonga. Hoko pēo a pai ke aho o kei wheo fo whane pe no whakautonga ai. Toko lahi au pite taimi me kautonga ai murin. I se atoni pa utoe toko lahi ngai mo ukalapu. Ai koe langa koe u community e taimi. Ko te hube me he whare kalapu ke whare kalapu e taimi. Kalapu whaone lua. Ai koe u community ke he ia he ku hau pe u. Me takta hau pe u community me o na u wheitu o ta aketi me ke o na u kalapu hen ai koe mea hen na u whinga paanga mo mea hau me hei me u community koristu tuku. Takta hau mai pe o lere ma ui au wite u community se atoni. Ai koe tu unga pe koe koe whio fofani ai no fo mo lahi ai whitu utaki. Lahi lere pia moe u community tufa me akai. Koe o se atukon koe pentemiki o lere u tufa. Food bank. He taini kana ke ki food bank neke ki community food bank e kautonga iki mua he 80s o 90s. Maka taku umea pene lahi au pito mai pe me. Ai mo lahi poto ai poto ai tamai tonga. Whanau koe koe wala koe taini mi i murini. Alu me tamai ke u sporti mo e mea. E koe walunga furuna ki tātai taha pe.
My name is Lesley Tonga Kamoto. I am a junior here at the University of Washington. I am majoring in geography with a focus in cities, citizenship, and migration. And I'm also double minoring in business and anthropology. I am the oldest child of Sione and Elizabeth Sikamoto. I am the oldest of four. My younger sister, Manakoniu Kamoto, she is a sophomore here at the University of Washington. And my younger sister, Luisa Okamoto, she is a junior in high school. And our younger brother, Manase Kamoto, he is a freshman in high school. Both my parents migrated here from the Kingdom of Tonga. My dad migrated here, as he said, in 1983 with his parents and two younger brothers, while my mom migrated here in 2001 when she met my dad and they got married. My dad migrated from Kolofo'o in Nuku'alofa. My mom migrated from Vautu'u in Kolomotu'a. Is also the oldest out of her siblings. She's the oldest of 8. She migrated to the United States when she was 30. Growing up, we saw our parents. Well, my dad has had the job that he has been at since 1990, so going on 34 years. He's been with the city of Seattle in their solid waste department. For lack of better terms, he works at the dump. Um, and my mom has worked a couple of jobs since then. She has worked as a caregiver for the elderly, both in nursing homes and also just um, in their homes. She would do some work for them. In her current job, she is a para educator with special needs students, specifically in the elementary age. She's been doing that for a couple years now. And growing up, we didn't have the most money. My parents always found a way to get by and always found a way to give us a life that was fulfilling for us. Knew how to keep us humble and how from kind of getting a little too big headed in terms of kind of growing up and thinking that we had it all. Which in more ways than one, we did have it all. We had a home that was happy. We had a home with loving parents. We always had a roof over our head and food on the table. But my parents always made it a point to stay humble wherever we went, because there's always someone who has it better than us, and there's always someone who has it way worse than us. And so they've always told us to be thankful for what we have, no matter how much or how little that may be. Growing up, I have seen my mom again. She's worked multiple different jobs. When she made the switch to be a para educator and be involved more on our school stuff, decision because we were getting older and they didn't want us to be kind of left alone at the house, have no one to watch us. They always wanted someone to be with us so no one else had to watch us. And so that's why my mom started working in our school. So we had the same hours, the same breaks and stuff like that. And so growing up, um, I saw my parents again make it work with whatever situation that was thrown at them. They found a way to make it work for me and my siblings, and that's something that I will always be grateful for. Is the fact that my parents never let anything stop them from giving me and my siblings a life that they knew that we deserved. Um, Growing up, my culture was always evident in my upbringing. My parents, both of them, are fluent in Tongan. And so growing up, they always spoke to us in Tongan, and that led to me and my siblings understanding the language fluently and being able to read and write and speak the language as well. For me, coming into higher education, that's something that I've always taken for granted. Growing up, was my parents speaking to us in our native tongue. That was something that I didn't really was a blessing until coming to college and seeing some of my peers not have that same luxury of parents who speak to them in their native tongue and keep them grounded in their culture. And so that's something that I'm more grateful for now, was my parents never letting the language die in terms of our upbringing. They have always been strong in speaking to us in Tongan, and it's not that they couldn't understand English or anything. They understand it just fine. They speak to us in Tongan and we respond back to them in English. And it's also not that they couldn't speak English as well. It's just that um, they wanted to keep that part alive in us. They wanted to keep the language alive. They wanted to keep that connection to our culture alive because we aren't in Tonga. So they wanted to preserve any and every connection that we had to our culture alive, and that was through language a lot of the time. Another way that my culture was evident in my upbringing was a lot of the respect and the values that my parents learned themselves from their parents. They passed down to us, and those are values of respect and respecting your parents and also keeping your faith strong and having a relationship with God. That is something that I'm grateful for because I've grown up seeing both my parents kind of lead their siblings and care for their siblings no matter what. And for me, that was something that I try to do with my siblings as well. Do whatever I can in any way that I can for my siblings, but also keeping um, our faith strong and keeping our relationship with God something that we do not forget. Another way my culture was evident in my upbringing was kind of seeing my parents, again, how they care for their siblings and seeing the relationship between siblings grow as the years go on, because that's something that my mom always pushed for me and my siblings, me and my younger siblings, that we were always each other's closest people. Growing up, I always saw faith, family, and our culture really thriving as I grew older. My parents' journey migrating to the US was always something that I kept in the back of my mind, especially as I was growing up and coming to a university, because it was something that I knew wasn't easy for them. And so that was something that always kept me grounded in what I'm studying and what I do, is knowing that the journey to get me there wasn't an easy one. It wasn't something that was just given to those who came before me, but it was something that was earned through sacrifices and through hard work, um, through my parents and my grandparents. And so, kind of using their journeys and their experiences coming here from a foreign land and coming here to the US and doing all the things that they did to put me in the position that I'm in today, I kind of use it as motivation to kind of push me forward and to kind of push me to want better for myself because they wanted better for me. Being here at a university um, as a Polynesian student, people don't really know a lot about the Pacific. The most that they know, again, is Hawaii. But for me, being here, being the oldest of two Tongan immigrants, it's definitely given me a different outlook on a lot of different situations when it comes to how I interact with other people, because there's certain things that people who weren't brought up the way that I was, they think it's okay, but for me, it's kind of the opposite. I have a different outlook than a lot of my peers when it comes to certain things. Their journeys definitely play a part in my motivation and my drive here at the university. A lot of the classrooms and a lot of the spaces I go in, I'm the only Pacific Islander to kind of walk into those spaces. And so for me, always remembering where I come from and always remembering the journeys of those before me helps me have like a more steady footing when it comes to standing alone in a lot of those spaces. It helps me kind of remember where I come from, but also remember where I'm going in terms of um, what I'm doing. Like all the work that I'm doing, it's for a reason and it's for everybody who's sacrificed to put me in the position that I'm in today. Um, and that's what helps me be even prouder to be a Polynesian student on campus, knowing that there's so much that went into putting me in the position that I'm in today, to be able to choose an education for myself, to be able to choose a better life for myself that someone else might not choose for me. And that's simply because of all the sacrifices and all the things that my parents did and also my grandparents to um, have me live the life that I live today. Their stories are my stories. I always try to remember that whenever things get kind of hard or things aren't going the way that I want it to here at school. I always try to think about my parents and my grandparents and their stories of leaving their only sense of familiarity and coming to a foreign land and building the life that they did. It kind of helps push me forward, and it kind of helps me just be even prouder to be where I'm from, to be of the family that I come from, um, especially in these spaces like a predominantly white institution. It helps me be proud, and it helps me be even motivated to continue my studies and to continue my journey here.